Good evening. My name is Khaled Bendor. I'm the editor of Fathom Journal. With me is Deputy Editor Andrew Apostolou, and we are very pleased to be joined by Hanin Ghaddar. Hanin, I think this is her third conversation with Fathom over the last 18 months or so. Lebanon expert Hanin Ghaddar is a Friedman Senior Fellow at the Washington Institute. She's also the author of Hezbollah Land, Mapping Dakhia and Lebanon Shia Community. We last spoke in May 2025, which was 6 months after the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah in November 2024. Just to timestamp this, we're speaking on the 23rd of April. Ambassadors to the US from both Israel and Lebanon are due to renew talks that began at the beginning of the ceasefire last week after Hezbollah and Israel conducted another round of fighting during the American-Israel war against Iran. Those talks are also supposed to be attended by Secretary of State Marco Rubio. And in the background is a request by the government of Lebanon to extend the ceasefire by a month, others say 10 days. And Israel has talked about staying in a type of security zone in South Lebanon. So that's kind of where we are. Hanin, welcome, and thank you again for speaking to us.
Thank you very much. And thanks, Fathom, for having me again. Very pleased to be with you here. This is a very important day for both Lebanon and Israel. Because, this is the second round of talks, but I just learned that I think it's confirmed that the meeting is moving to the White House and there's a possibility that Trump will attend. It's not just Rubio. So this meeting, the second round, is being given also another major layer of attention. And I think also that this is what Trump administration, Trump per se, realized recently, that this could be a historic event, that if Lebanon and Israel start talking with a very high level attention from the US, then definitely this is something that might lead somewhere. So we are here. This is going to be a very important meeting. I don't think that there will be major revelations after the second talk. It's a process and it's going to take some time. And I think today we are going to see the two sides coming with still two different priorities. Lebanon is coming one day before the ceasefire expires in Lebanon, asking for the extension of the ceasefire, probably for another month. Israel is coming, saying, we're glad we're talking, but we want disarmament. And for Israel, this is major because if Hezbollah still holds arms in Lebanon and can still influence the security and military decision in Lebanon, ceasefire is not going to happen. So they still have very different priorities, very different points of views, very different goals. And I think, if Trump attends this meeting, then they will be forced to compromise faster if you want these points of views.
Great, thank you. So if we could just kind of look at the recent fighting between Israel and Hezbollah, how do you assess that current war, round of violence, whatever we want to call it, perhaps in comparison to the previous one that I guess broadly ended in November 2024? What are the similarities and the differences between them?
Well, I think Hezbollah started this war very weak. Last time it started with its full potential, military potential and capabilities, which was degraded during the first war. This time they started one with very weak military capabilities, without leadership, without commandment structure, with more IRGC, Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps, involved in their decision. So the difference is really that this time Hezbollah is weaker, but it's more controlled by Iran. And the other difference is obviously that the people, the Hezbollah's constituency, the Shia community, people of the south, the Bekaa, Dahiya, were not ready for this, were opposed to this. Were very much shocked by the fact that Hezbollah started this war, and they realized that this is really an Iranian decision, and Hezbollah is no more. the Lebanese, part of Hezbollah is no more. So there's a huge difference. And of course, this time for the Israelis, it was different because the goal was not just to degrade Hezbollah, but also to create a buffer zone in the south of Lebanon, where today, despite the ceasefire, the Israelis are still there doing operations within the buffer zone. So this is a big difference for the Israelis as well.
If I could just ask you, Hanin, from an Israeli public perspective, I don't want to speak on behalf of the Israeli public, but after November 2024, we were told Hezbollah has been decimated, not destroyed, hasn't disappeared, leadership taken out, rockets seriously hit. And I'm old enough to remember, because it was maybe 6 weeks ago, Israelis saying, "What a mistake! Wow, Hezbollah, they entered into the war with Iran. They don't realize what a mistake they've made. This is a huge strategic error, and
Mm.
now we're gonna, I don't know, destroy them even more." And in that context, it actually seems to be that the Hezbollah's put up were stronger than Israelis potentially thought. Was that a mistake? Should we always have known that Hezbollah was weaker but still exists? How should we have understood it, or should we have been surprised, or maybe not?
No, listen, at the end of the day, Hezbollah has been definitely weakened, and they cannot today threaten Israel the way they used to threaten it before. They cannot, they want to show that they are stronger. However, you can't really get rid of Hezbollah the way it is happening. Hezbollah definitely wanted to like the first priority for them is to rebuild and regenerate. There are two ways to really eliminate Hezbollah in Lebanon. One is in Iran. If the IRGC itself, if the Iranian regime falls and the IRGC is dismantled, then Hezbollah will automatically be dismantled because they are part of the IRGC's Quds force. That's for clear. This is one way of doing it, is to eliminate the organization where Hezbollah which includes Hezbollah, where Hezbollah is a member, which is the IRGC. This is going to take some time, and even if there was a war resumption, even if whether it's a deal or a war resumption, this is going to take some time. Militarily or through a deal, the IRGC is not going anywhere anytime soon. So the other option is to get rid of Hezbollah internally. The military operations that Israel is doing is a major part of it. Hezbollah military infrastructure has been degraded in 2024 a lot. However, everybody thought after we signed the ceasefire agreement in November 2024 that now Lebanon will take care of the rest. What is the rest? It's three levels, right? The first is the military disarmament of Hezbollah, which Lebanon was supposed to do. Lebanon had a year and a half to take care of this. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen. Two, the other levels, the other two foundations that allowed Hezbollah to rebuild have never been targeted. Not by the Israelis, not by the Lebanese, not by the Americans, not by the international community. Basically, it is the political foundation where Hezbollah has infiltrated the political decision, like, for example, the security institutions, the appointments, the customs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The other foundation is the financial foundation, which is basically the cash economy in Lebanon, and Hezbollah's main bank, which is the only bank functioning in Lebanon, called Al Hassan, and their financial institutions, that is the free, unsupervised cash economy flow inside Lebanon. The Lebanese government was supposed also to take care of Hezbollah's capability of rebuilding and regenerating, and they didn't. And the international community really didn't pay attention to this. Israel can do what it can, which is degrading Hezbollah's military capabilities, but Hezbollah's political power and Hezbollah's financial power, which basically they need in order to rebuild and regenerate after every war, are still intact. And they are represented today by mainly their allies in the government, mostly Speaker Nabih Berri, who's also the head of the Amal movement. He is the political protector, if you want, the umbrella of Hezbollah. Two, it is the like their infiltration of the security institutions and the cash economy, etc. So this is basically what keeps Hezbollah going and what helps Hezbollah rebuild and regenerate all the time.
Hanin, thank you very much. You've actually anticipated my question, which makes it a lot easier for me. So I can skip the intro to the question. How much political influence do you feel that in the last year or so Hezbollah has lost in Lebanon in general, but in particular within the Shia community?
Within the state institutions, let's say the parliament is still the same since before the first war. So nothing changed in the parliament. They've already lost the majority in the parliament after the 2019 protests. So this is definitely something that they lost already. Now, after the war, after the ceasefire agreement, there was a new president, a new government, a new prime minister. And this is where you see where they have lost, like most of their allies are not there. The new government is more or less not necessarily hardcore anti-Hezbollah because it still has Hezbollah and Amal ministers in it. The Shia ministers in this government are basically Hezbollah and Amal ministers, which doesn't change anything. But they're not the majority. And one of their main allies, which is the Free Patriotic Movement, the Aounists, or if you want Bassil, Gibran Bassil, they're not in the government. So this is a big loss for them. However, the government is also divided. It has everyone, and if you want, the majority of the government are more like focused on compromising the national decision, making sure that, like taking the right decisions without really implementing them. So we have a government where Hezbollah is not heavily represented, but it's not a government that is strong enough to implement its own decisions. So that benefits Hezbollah, and that allows their political cover, that is Nabih Berri, to manipulate the scene and impose his own opinions and will and decisions.
Okay, and can I ask, is there a viable political alternative to Hezbollah?
Of course there is. It's still in the making, and there are a lot of voices out there that needs to be compromised, united. A certain movement can be done, but they need attention. They need kind of support. They need attention. They need protection, and they need support. They're not ideal at this point, but they can be made ideal. They can be made better. It's not a matter of the lack of alternative. The alternative is there. It's a lack of policy. It's a lack of Shia policy in Lebanon. No one has really thought of this issue. And I believe that if we start thinking about some kind of a policy for the Shia alternative in Lebanon, you have a lot of potential. You just need to pay attention, and this can be done. But if they're left alone, they're weak, they're unprotected, they don't have enough resources, and they are not united in a way with an umbrella. You need to give them that political protection and umbrella. And
Thanks,
the Shia
Hanin.
community is looking for that.
That's really interesting. Thank you, Hanin. So we in some ways you're presenting this dual thing that needs to defeat Hezbollah. There's the kind of Israeli military angle, and then there's a Lebanese domestic political angle. And it strikes me interesting that you actually haven't mentioned the Lebanese Armed Forces in that.
We're getting to that.
What's the best way to understand the LAF and is it an issue of will? Is it an issue of capacity? How should we understand the LAF?
It's an issue of will, it's an issue of capacity, and it's an issue of leadership. We have definitely seen that the Lebanese Armed Forces did some work in south of Lebanon when Hezbollah was okay with it. We have not seen the Lebanese Armed Forces do anything when Hezbollah was opposed to it. We have seen the Lebanese army commander showing the government a plan after a plan after a plan without seeing any implementation beyond south of Litani. Yes, they do not have everything they need in order to disarm Hezbollah all over Lebanon, but they do have the military capabilities and the capacity to start somewhere in a way where Hezbollah might not be okay with it. They coordinated with Hezbollah in south of Litani. Let's see what they can do now. I think the capacity issue can be circumvented because once they start and show that they are serious about disarmament, the assistance will come, the capacity will happen, they will get what they need, but they need to start somewhere. Two, the political decision in Lebanon needs to change. This issue is not just an issue of the army, it's also an issue of a political decision that basically no one in Lebanon, not just the president, also the government, prime minister, no one in Lebanon wants the army to confront Hezbollah at this point. Unfortunately, there's no other way because Hezbollah will not surrender its arms. And Israel can continue invading one town after another, one part of the south after another, but this is also not going to help. Neither Israel wants to occupy Lebanon, nor Lebanon wants Israel to occupy it. The only way to do it is by sovereign decision and sovereign implementation of this decision. That means, unfortunately, and no matter how you turn it around, is by disarming Hezbollah by force. But that's also not enough. You have to disarm Hezbollah by force, start somewhere, make a political decision that this is happening, and that's the only way. And at the same time, target its financial and political foundations to make sure that it's not going to rebuild right after you disarm it. And that's the only way. But the Lebanese need to understand that if they do not do that and they continue seeking a national consensus on Hezbollah's arms, it's not going to happen. And Lebanon will not really recover from this. So unfortunately, they're not there today. And the Lebanese Armed Forces, the commandment of the Lebanese Armed Forces does not want to do this. And it's very comfortable because the Lebanese leadership is on the same page with it. Either because they also don't want to disarm Hezbollah or because they're not strong enough to push it, to make sure that the army does it. So we are stuck in a way where Lebanon does not want Lebanon definitely does not want to disarm Hezbollah by force. Hezbollah is not going to be disarmed. And the moment Israel stops, Hezbollah will use its political and financial powers and foundations in order to rebuild and regenerate. And this will only lead us to another round of war in the next year or two. It's a vicious circle. We know what's needed. Everybody knows what's needed. It's really about making the political decision together.
Thank you, Hanin. If I could just ask, there were rumors that Hezbollah were kind of actively planning some sort of violent takeover of the Lebanese state. Can you comment on that at all?
They do not have the numbers to overthrow the government. Definitely not. So what happened in 2009 when the former Prime Minister Saad al-Hariri was in Washington and he entered into a meeting with Obama as a prime minister and he left as a former prime minister, this is when Hezbollah overthrew the government through the withdrawal of its ministers and allies from the government. They had the numbers. They were always able to do that. Today, they do not have the numbers to do this. Hezbollah cannot overthrow the government that way. What they can do is, what they could have done, and I think that was the plan, is to start a round of violence in the streets, mainly similar to May 7 events of 2007, to make sure that the government doesn't implement any of its decisions and make sure that, the government is forced to change some of its ministers to their advantage. I think they were planning some kind of May 7 events. What happened is that their main ally that they depended on to do this, Nabih Berri, changed his mind. And he's asked his supporters and people not to join the protest. And he told Hezbollah that this is not going to happen. That happened after Israel attacked Beirut, administrative Beirut, not just Dahi, with this like once famous infamous Wednesday when Beirut was attacked heavily and a lot of people died when and mainly Amal movement Sunni areas were attacked. And that was a message to Nabih Berri because some of his own neighborhoods, Amal neighborhoods, were attacked. Ain al-Tini, his headquarters, was attacked, not his own headquarters, but the neighborhood. And many of Amal operatives were targeted as well. So right after that, he told his supporters not to go to the streets, and Hezbollah withdrew its supporters as well. And I think he got the message.
Well, thank you very much. That's fascinating. Can I ask, what impact, if any, do you think the Syrian Israeli talks are having in terms of encouraging or discouraging or validating or
Mm.
delegitimizing, whichever way, the Lebanese Israeli dialogue that we now have?
It's not influencing this dialogue. It had an influence at one point where Lebanese people were looking at the region and saying everyone is having their own talks and we're left behind, we're not allowed to do it until we are now decided to do it. But the talks themselves have no connection whatsoever. I think it was a decision that the Lebanese president has made, and then eventually, after a few tries, then the prime minister of Israel, decided to welcome it, and that was the day after Nabih Berri got the message, because he was a hindrance in these talks as well. He was playing a bad role with Hezbollah, with the street violence, with hindering the talks, etc. So finally, he got the message, and he was like, "Okay, I'm sitting this one out," and that's basically what led to the direct negotiations we're seeing today.
It seems in some ways a unique situation that you have these two sovereign states that don't really
Mm-hmm.
have major disputes between them,
Mm.
but there's another kind of foreign body that is blocking normalization.
Yeah.
We began this conversation by saying that there's a second meeting between ambassadors, etc. American and Israeli decision makers very much hope that Israel-Lebanese relations could eventually move towards normalization, peace agreement, full diplomatic relations, etc. To what extent is that, do you think, a realistic prospect, or is it overly ambitious, do you think, Hanin?
No, it's not overly ambitious, but it's not going to happen today or tomorrow. Well, let's see what Trump going to say, because with Trump, you never know, right? It can be like a major surprise today, but it's not going to happen before both. You won't see anything before both President Aoun and Prime Minister Netanyahu actually come and meet together here. So this is more preparatory. It's possible because of many reasons. Very, very tangible. One is that that's the only way to end the war, and now the Lebanese finally got it. That there's no other way to end the war except for peace. Resistance has died. For the Lebanese, including the Shia, resistance is no longer a solution. Resistance is only broad destruction, no reconstruction, and no one is thinking, no one knows when the reconstruction will happen. This is new. There's no compensation. One war after another in a very short time, where people like the displaced cannot take it anymore. Lebanon realized that the only way to do it is actually through peace talks. Lebanon is coming with their own priorities, obviously, that are different from the Israelis' priorities, but it's possible because they both want it. They both want peace. How to go about disarmament, that's a different question. There's still, the difference is there, but they do want peace because they want war actually to stop. The second thing is that the whole region is going this way. It's not possible for Lebanon to stay behind in a region that is going in like to peace, prosperity, etc. Three, the gap between the ground and the leadership has always been big when it comes to peace. The Lebanese are more ready than the leadership, which is very different than Jordan and Egypt, let's say. In Jordan and Egypt, the leadership took the decision, the people, the street was not ready, and they're still not ready, and it was done the other way around. In Lebanon, it's really bottom up. The Lebanese are ready. the leadership was hesitant. Now the leadership finally decided that it's going to go for it. So everyone is ready for Lebanon. And Lebanon cannot afford to wait. Simply, like the Saudis can afford to wait because, you know, the Saudi Arabia, like they're not going through any war. Their economy is better. Lebanon cannot afford to wait. We don't even want to. It's not just about ending the war. It's really not about only peace. It's really about normalization and Abraham Accords. It's really about a complete security, economic, and people-to-people deal. But we have to start somewhere. So I think like the best way to start with these negotiations is to eliminate the anti-normalization law today in Lebanon that is like really outdated. And this is a good way to start, to show good intentions, is to go back to Lebanon today and say, okay, we are going to eliminate this law and work on people who are going to stand in its way. And that's a good way to start. And then, you know, people to people can start, which would lead to other things. There are steps that we need to do in order to get to peace and normalization, but it's doable.
I have a question about France and the US. We know what the US is doing, but France's role is a little more obscure, shall we say. What role? Sorry, I didn't. Not
Obscure.
intended as a joke at the expense of my neighbours across the channel. What roles should these two countries be playing? And I mean, we know what the Americans are doing. What should they be doing extra? And what should the French be doing? And perhaps one can put it this way, what should they not be doing?
Yeah, that's the best way to say, like they should not be doing many things. And I think simply not because France has not been very, very helpful in Lebanon. It's simply because today it is really in negotiations under the US auspices, and the Israelis are part of it. Both the Americans and the Israelis do not want the French to be part of this. So let's be realistic. They're not going to be part of this. Everything they do is basically distracting from the main course and the process of the negotiations. They can say what they want. It's a free country, and you know, like they can commend, they can have their opinions, but I don't think it's going to work. The Americans and the French, like this administration, and the Israelis are very clear about the French role, and it's simply not going to happen. So they should not just like sit this one out and see what happens. It succeeded. If it succeeded, then great. If it doesn't succeed, then maybe they have an alternative. But this is not their space, and it's okay if they do not have a space on everything Lebanon. They can observe for the time being and see what works and that what doesn't work, and see from their own, you know, like maybe there's lessons learned in this for them as well on how to do things, because so far they've been unfortunately appeasing Hezbollah a lot and their allies, and the status quo kind of like stayed the same because they wanted it to stay the same, and that didn't work for Lebanon. And unfortunately, we need a new, fresh outlook. I'm not saying that this is going to succeed. Hopefully it will, but I'm saying let's give someone else a chance and see what happens.
Thanks, Hanin. We'll leave it to you to tell Macron that rather
Yes,
than us. Um,
definitely.
thank you so much. This has been fascinating as always. Really appreciate your insights and your analysis, and we hope to continue the conversation soon. So thank you so
Anytime,
much.
my pleasure.